Welcome, Anthony. Thank you so much for joining this talk on why do you need a CMS anymore. How are you doing?
Thanks, Roland. Yes, everything's going really, really well. I managed to spend the weekend, I think it's graduation time. So all three of my children graduated last week. So we just had some friends over to celebrate over the weekend, and I got to enjoy one of my favorite pastimes, which is making pizza. So lots of people, lots of pizza. So I'm still on a high, and looking forward to talk through this topic with you today, Roland.
Cool. All right. So let's dive into it. It's a little provocative, the title. Why do you need a CMS anymore? But I'll go ahead with a quick, small introduction of myself. My name is Roland Wilmos. I am CTO at Alpha Solutions here in North America, and here today, joined by you, Anthony. So give us more an introduction, where you work and what you work with, and
thanks, Roland. So Anthony Nigro is my name. I'm the president for Squiz. I've actually been with Squiz for about 18 years, and I started 18 years ago in Australia. And so through that time, I started off as a practitioner, so delivering on digital experiences. And I'd say what was great in those early days is we had great products as well as a sort of an agency approach, which meant that we were delivering great websites that have data integrations, and then we had our product that we were able to keep evolving doing that. So I moved to the US from Australia probably about 18 months ago. It's a great time for our business. Technology is evolving extremely quickly, and we've got a lot of great customers here. So moved out to help everyone with digital experience as much as possible.
Ooh. All right, let's dive into it. So I prepared a bunch of different questions, and the first part of the questions are more sort of rhetorical because, again, you have hopefully a strong opinion on it, and I have as well. And what I would like to get your sort of facets and details on how you see the different things. So let me just take it off. So AI. So AI. Any kind of AI system, Cloud Code, or anything else can generate a landing page like 30 seconds, right? Or so. So why do I actually need a CMS to manage it anymore? I can do that with AI too, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say, firstly, speed up is incredible. So AI represents a terrific opportunity to everyone at the moment, because it enables us to, I guess, move a lot faster than what we have previously. So I've got no doubt that I want everyone to have a speed up. I think the other thing sort of central to websites at the moment is the content, is the data. AI can spin things up, it can produce a lot of code, but inevitably, where is it hosted? Where is it getting its knowledge from? So the reason why most organizations need a CMS is because we do have more than one person working for the organization, and B, they need a place to store that information. And ultimately, that means humans can get access to it as well as AI.
Right.
So once again, I like to encourage the speed up. That's required, and that's providing a lot of benefits to people. But ultimately, what you get with the CMS is largely around governance, structure, great repositories to keep that information going. And ultimately, it's what most businesses will need. If I think of, even Squiz as an example, we are embracing AI. So we made some great decisions in our platform to make sure that all services that we provide within our platform are all AI controllable. So they're all API first. And so what that means is we can actually provide good structure, good data management, but ultimately leverage AI to help speed up some of the processes that might take a little while.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Does that make sense?
So I guess that also requires, required for companies of a certain size, right? Before you.
Yeah, potentially. I'd say, if you are a one-person operation, do you need a really big, large, complex content management system? Most likely not. So I think, you've always got to pick the right technology that suits your organization. I think our model is we've been pretty scalable, whether it's, one website or thousands of websites, you can host that. But ultimately, for most of the people that we're working with and most of the organizations across the US, they have more than one person operating, and they need to have, on-brand experiences. They need to have consistency. So, an AI generating a landing page, you can create those prompts and it will create something for you, but then is it really encapsulating what you need to be doing as points of difference in the experience? So there's probably a requirement to have more than just that. Roland, if I talk to that point around AI speeding up, so even a recent example, we just rebuilt our own website, which, as a digital experience company or a CMS company, we don't always spend enough time doing that development, but AI helped us speed up. So we had our designs created, or we created our designs, and then we use AI through every step of that process. And websites nowadays are thousands of lines of code for CSS, for everything else. So we use AI to help generate that code, and I'd probably say 80 to 90% of our website rebuild actually was generated through AI. So that represents major speed ups. And then we're able to take that code, or that, what we've developed, and then connect it in with our platform. So not only have we built it once, but then we've got reuse and extensibility and governance from a brand perspective. So I think the idea now is, yes, you can leverage AI for a lot, but it's about making sure that it is connected to the technology so you can get the benefit of governance and everything that goes with it as well.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. All right. So a change there. So many of the customers are now going to talk through or use AI agents to browse websites, right? So the question comes more like, we have spent a lot of time on creating nice websites, SEO, and all kind of stuff. So why do I need to invest so much in structured content on my website now, since it's not really for my customers directly, it's more for the AI agents or the bots, basically.
Yeah, I get that question a lot, Roland. Is do we need websites again, or any more in the future? What's going to change around the space?
Yeah, or is it just basically becoming a sort of a content integration repository layer representing?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, we are seeing a lot more users actually adopting AI, and that's one method of how they're getting access to information. But I'd say, if you think about the industry that you're in and the different user needs that you have, there's very much going to be the users that are searching, using AI, they're getting the information they're looking for. But then there's still people that will want to browse. Different parts of your journey require you to do that. So if you think about a website needs to be there. It needs to cater for the different audience types. So as I said, I'll use higher education as an example. You might, that journey to select a university will take years, and your information needs are going to be very different as you're going through the process. So you imagine, if you're in that exploratory stage, you might be browsing more and you need a traditional website to be able to do that. But then maybe when it's getting closer to application, you want to know a lot deeper information. You want to know, how do I apply? And that's where AI might come into it. And you might find that is easier because you can ask your very specific questions. So what we need to do as organizations is we need to make sure that we've got an experience, a website that's going to be able to cater all these different parts of the journey. And then from an AI perspective, if that's going to be one of the major interfaces into the future that people are accessing, that AI is trained based on people's content. So, it's the job of these organizations to make sure that they've got the right content available for these AI models to be able to go and consume. And so, we spend a lot of time with customers now looking at, the completeness of their content. Are they able to answer a lot of the questions that their end customers will answer? Because if they don't have that information in their structured content on their website, then largely it's their competitors' information that might come up in ChatGPT. So if I had to just summarize it back, I think any good organization needs to understand the channels that are really effective for their business, whether it's AI, whether it's website, whether it's social media. You've got to be able to manage those channels. And what we know is central to that is the content, the IP, that knowledge, that information that you need to have on your website. So I still see that websites will need to continue on for some time, in its current form.
But there's as I see it, there's a different set of level there, right? There's all the technology to provide it to the LLM search engine, right? There's all this JSON LD structures you want to provide now. The latest thing is LLM text. Do you want to return your web pages in MD markdown format suddenly? So that's all the technology part of it. You want to require those JSON LDs. If you could do FAQs, which is like question answer thing in a very technical format. Oh, they love that, right? They will love that, the search engines. So that's one part of it, right? And then there's the structured content. How do they fit well within CMS DXP?
Yeah, so obviously, yes, you need to be able to have that technical ability to have the right code and the right structures for people to be able to access. I do make the joke that AI is evolving so rapidly right now is that no matter what you're going to do, it's going to try and find a way to get access. So, you know, a lot of people do invest technically on particular approaches, but that's why I sort of take that step back and just say, well, I need to understand my audiences and the channels and the way they consume that information. And knowing that technology will evolve, I want to have a good base that'll allow me to have some customization, some ability to do that now. But it's not dissimilar to user experience. Design for the channels, have the content, have the structure, have the code that enables you to drive all of those channels. And I think that's where people will be successful. You know, we've seen it happen in the past with SEO. When I first started, I said 18 years ago, it was about creating really good, accessible websites that had the right code structure. Everything was semantic. If you did that, you would have great principles of SEO. And then what happened in the industry is, you know, Google allowed you to have keywords and allowed people sort of shortcuts to do that. Now, the people that took the shortcuts and didn't focus on their website, optimizing their experience and making it accessible, they're the ones now that have a much bigger gap. Because ultimately, AI is wanting people to have great structured code, to have accessible websites, to have the right content. So if you're really focusing on those best practices, you're going to achieve great outcomes as the industry starts to change. And as I said, by having that user experience approach, meaning what are the audiences or who are the audiences that are coming to my site? What are the mechanisms of how they're accessing that content, and making sure that you've got a strategy that evolves over time as the technology continues to evolve.
Yeah, good point there. Good points. All right, next up. So Claude and basically AI can write better product descriptions. Now I'm taking product descriptions. It could be article pages, it could be anything, right? Than my content team. So what is that basically left like in the CMS to do? Because like Squiz and everybody else, you have it in the CMS. You can get help there, use AI to write your stuff and rewrite it and make it better. So what's there actually left for the content team to do in the CMS?
Yeah, so I'd say maybe this probably relates to me more so. I think writer's block is not a thing anymore. So, you know, being able to create great content at speed, it's very much open and available for everyone to be able to leverage. So AI has provided great ability to do that. I think the most important thing at the moment is like subject matter expertise. So having a really good understanding of your organization, the content, because you can just go to run a prompt, get new content for product description, for landing pages, whatever it might be. But ultimately, you need someone to review that. And you need to make sure that it is on your brand, that it is on your tone of voice, that it is going to, you know, suit the audiences that you're presenting to. So ultimately, I think it means that you'll be able to produce more content, but it puts a higher requirement on the people that are going to be reviewing that content and making sure that it's fit for purpose.
Sure. I mean, there's already been a lot of bad stories out there. Big consultancies that, was it one of the big companies they produced somewhere? I remember in Australia, and they provided a lot of money for it, and they found out it was done by AI, right? But that always puzzles me, because no matter if you use AI to produce content or not, the QA process should always be the same anyway, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's why going through, so as I said, like content creation is one aspect, then going through a workflow and a review process is also really, really important as well. I think, you know, we're in this age as well, and this works for both content and developers. You need strong senior people that understand the space to be able to review what AI is outputting. You know, you can take a cursory glance and everything seems good that it's produced. but ultimately there's going to be problems or there's going to be errors. So making sure that you have the right people across that and leveraging things like a workflow in a content management system really help for that. Making sure that you have marketing review and approval. So I'd say it will continue to evolve the space. Right now, it's still at that speed up place. I know we've got AI that's able to sort of review what people are doing and then make suggestions on behalf of the browsing behavior, which is great. But once again, it still needs a subject matter expert to review that and see if it's going to be the right thing for the organization.
Totally agree with that point. All right, moving on to personalization, which is also me working a lot of years in the CMS space. That's always been a killer, especially in sales situations. That's always what marketers love to hear. Personalization. It's very dependent on how much they actually got done in projects, if they actually got it done. But personalization has always been like a really, really strong feature. Now with AI, you can really do really good, really high personalization of pages. Also, the chance back in time was that, you get to those sessions, let's create 5 different personas. Oh, that's great. Now who's going to write the same content for 5 different personas for every page? Well, that never really happened. Now you can actually do it, right? But I'm thinking like you can also use AI to do personalization on the fly now, basically. How do you see this challenge with all the stuff that you create personas, you create the content, and then you can personalize on the fly? How do you see that from the viewpoint of Squiz, what you're doing with your platform?
Yeah. So I go back to the point, Roland, that what we're looking at is a multi-channel strategy. So if you're going to leverage AI, that's perfect. And you're right, it gives users contextual information about what they're doing. There's an aspect of how do I transact with that? So I've got that personalized experience in my chatbot, or my chat experience that's in an external source. They've got access to the data, but no one else does. So that's why I go back and think of what are the different channels that my audiences are going to be leveraging, and how do I make sure that I'm getting the most out of that? So I'm still surprised, number one, on websites. People are not doing enough with the data that they're actually getting through the websites. That as a visitor, I'm returning many times, or that, you're sending me emails that are bringing me back to my website. Not everyone is leveraging that data to personalize it in the first place. So I would have a strategy that's looking at all the different channels that I've got. What are the anticipated touch points? And then where do I expect users to transact? And so I would try to have a continued experience as much as possible. So I'll use the example right now. Yes, I'm going to go to ChatGPT. I'm going to start inquiring about something. I'm searching, and one of the trigger points might bring me from ChatGPT or Claude onto the website. Now, at that point, I have a decision as an organization. I can provide the same search interfaces on my website to enable them to continue the same style search and across my data. If I do that, if I provide that same AI search experience on the website, all of a sudden there's continuation of experience. They're going to continue to type questions in the same way. They're going to give their, a bit more information around what they're doing, and we'll understand intent a lot better. So if you can imagine, that would be a great continuity of experience. You get a lot more access to the data. And then once again, to your point, you can leverage AI to help personalize the content based on their context. And so if I go back to your initial point, personalization, leveraging data is still essential on the web. It's more of how do you glue together the different channels that you've got and leverage the right data and information.
Right. Yes. Cool. All right. And jumping on to something completely different, but still, of course, in the same area. So how do you see the size and shape of the CMS market in general in this AI world, right? So it's so easy to build stuff with AI. Do you think that's going to put some pressure on CMS vendors, like in terms of license costs?
I think that, it's a great question, Roland. I don't think the industry, as an example, will shrink. So I think the need for technology is still really, really important. specifically as we're trying to come to terms with security and, what are the implications of what people are building. And we're also at a state where, the web represents a major touch point or interaction point for most people. So I don't see the industry shrinking. But what I do see is tooling needing to expand or evolve. So, if I'd had WordPress from 10 years ago, that's not going to be fit for purpose in the new era. So what we've tried to focus on is really enabling the person in the middle. So make sure that they've got access to great tooling with security, with all the governance and things that you need. That AI is part of the platform. So I can interact with it. I can get it to do jobs that are the things that I probably don't want to do or I don't want to waste time on. So that's kind of the approach that we've taken, is that, make the tooling better, easier to access, and enabling AI to work within it. And I think that's where you'll see a lot more providers working in that space. So if anything, it means that you probably do need to lean more on technology, because if I think of AI at face value seems very cheap. So as an individual, I can go get a subscription. How many subscriptions do you have, Roland? I'm sure you've probably.
Yeah, sure.
So, you can go get a subscription and that seems very cheap. But then as soon as I want to scale that, so if I think of, a private enterprise, university, if I think of government, what's 20 times 20,000 employees?
Yes.
Instantly, we're not in a space that's still cheap. No. It's a scaled cost, and in essence, it's not always efficient to do it that way as well. So right now, if I think of the surprising points that we need to be aware of, and I'm sure you probably see it across your customer base, bot traffic has never been higher. So we've got high traffic still. Sorry, I've just got a call coming in. We've got high traffic on websites. Also, the approach, whether it's bots, whether it is attacks, or whether it is, security threats, they're not becoming easier to handle. They're becoming more sophisticated. And that means we need the technology to improve. And, AI will help with part of that, but it's also, some of the great providers that we work with as well, they're going to help make sure that we've got really good security. So if that goes back to your question, so I said, I see the space evolving to be able to handle sort of different channels. And the other thing, I don't know, Roland, what's your prediction? I don't think AI is going to get cheaper.
I think I made a comment for fun the other day with the first bunch of tokens are always free, right? I'm sure it's gonna grow, and that's gonna also be a more focus on how to utilize it, right? From your own platform, like when you do your indexing or search with the vector based, you don't just re-index all the time, right? It's going to cost money, so you have to be more intelligent. I think definitely it's going to be a big driver and a big change now.
Yeah, completely. And that's where sort of, fortunately, we've got a terrific product and engineering team that makes the right decisions based on technology available today, but we don't lock into one approach. It's always an evolving space. And, what we're seeing is, at the moment, there is, probably say even private enterprise in some circumstances propping up the cost or keeping the cost of AI down. But as they keep developing new models, new technology, new approaches, we are seeing that the baseline probably stays the same, but, that cost will continue to increase. So,
sure. Yeah, I have one thought. It's not really related to CMS in a way. That is like how many big organizations out there have the old classic IT structure when you build something that makes sure that you don't be too dependent. And since AI is such a big thing you can integrate in your whole organization, I'm not talking only CMS or DXP, like the whole organization, the whole processes. It can be a challenge if you say, okay, I want to change to OpenAI instead of using Claude or whatever you want to do. But that's just some thoughts and concerns you could see, right? Because that's the old classic architecture. You don't make it too complex and too loosely coupled, but at least consider what the risks are. What are the risks if I need to change? What would the cost be? Think about it.
And I think Roland, to your point, that's why you need experts like your organization to be able to come help and make decisions. Most most customers that we have, they're not product and engineering teams.
Shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be. So they need the experience from, people like your team, that you've built so many different solutions. You've got to know how to evolve that and make sure that it'll last the test of time. So that kind of experience is essential. And to your point, I rely on our really great product and engineering team, because they know that we need to build things that will allow us to switch different technology out. And they consider the performance of each interaction, each part of our platform. How do we make it faster? But then also consider the cost. If our costs keep going up, then we've got no choice to increase the cost downstream. So by making the right decisions, we can keep our costs pretty efficient, while still providing the benefit of new technology and the speed up that you get. But I think without a doubt, most organizations, as I said, unless they invest heavily on product engineering, they need support and they need experience and they need guidance, either through sort of partners or people that they'll work with, but ultimately the technology as well needs to be architected in a way that's going to allow for extension.
Yeah. Cool. I'll move on to another question here. So not technology as such. How do you see staffing needs around digital content production and publishing start to change now in this AI world?
Yeah, so the question is, if you're a junior and you're coming into the market, what does that look like for you? Yeah. So I think we sort of touched upon this earlier. I think subject matter expertise is extremely important. So what we see is like a great senior person that is really, really experienced, can leverage AI to do a lot of the legwork for them. And that's something that they potentially would have put to a junior person. So my suggestion is, people need to understand business, user experience. They need to understand sort of the content. They need to understand all those realms. And I don't drastically see the need for less people yet. So I think staffing will remain largely the same. But ultimately, we'll start to see a major change in productivity. Yeah. So if you are, one example, we've got like really, really strong developers at our organization, similar to content production. But a strong developer using AI, it's like they've got 2 or 3 or 4 junior staff working with them, and they know what to look out for, and they can, leverage that junior AI staff to produce for them. And the same thing in our content areas in marketing. They can take ideas, concepts, have that fleshed out, and so their production is a lot higher. Yeah. But ultimately, it still needs that review. Is that how you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it probably can almost guess my question here. So that always probably all of us have thought about that. So how does a junior become a senior?
It's a great question. They've got to get their own AI to support what they're doing. No, and I think this is where, so how does a junior become a senior, ultimately, from a content perspective? In an AI world? That's a good question.
That's the same basically with you think about it for developers, right? It's the same thing, right? Because as you said, the strongest developers are definitely the one that just have this new power tool in AI, but without them having that knowledge and the learnings and experience through all the years, they wouldn't be able to do the same quality review, all that stuff.
Yeah, and so it takes hardening. And so the reality is just to have experience, and as I said, to dive into the context that the work that you're doing, and continue to iterate. Now we're at this stage where you need to iterate faster than you ever have had before. I go back to this point, very much developing subject matter expertise is going to be the key, and so that's why really diving into the organization that you're working for, and I sort of see this as like the same thing as digital. Digital is something that actually runs across an entire organization. And a lot of the time people put digital teams in the corner and sort of like, they're just working on the website. But if I'm someone that's working on the website, I'm really a conduit for that entire organization. So I can't just put myself in the corner. I've got to understand the context of the business, the strategic drivers, and I need to then be able to connect that to the work. So really for a junior, it means absorb as much as you can as the organization, develop out that subject matter expertise, and then iterate. as much as possible. The other thing that I would probably suggest, and this is probably more on the developer front, don't be quick to accept everything that AI provides you.
No.
So when it comes to code and code creation, I think I read it, I can't remember the statistic, but when you have code that is generated through an AI tool, they're often introducing all these dependencies that might not even exist, all these security holes. So I think the mindset's got to be, great, AI's given me some code. It's got to change from, actually, AI's given me some code. How do I poke holes in it? How do I validate it? How do I test it? So that method of iteration, rather than just accepting what's being produced for you, has same application in both content as well as in development practices when you've got AI connected to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely where we at Evolution spend most time. We have created a strict AI process where there's a lot of human interaction between each step, as you said, for QA, testing, review, planning, all that stuff, because sometimes it generates stuff that, shouldn't have been generated.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah.
And it's probably the same with the content. All right.
Yeah.
So let's turn it around. So where do you see AI making your CMS more valuable? Any specifics on that?
Yeah, so we've got tooling all the way through our platform, and I'll go back to the point. The thing that we did many years ago is we designed our architecture where everything has, is a service, is an API. So we've got, our content management system that has an integration platform, that has personalization engine, has all these different parts, but each of them can be controlled directly. So as we've been introducing AI into that, it means that it can literally act on behalf of the human through any part of our platform. And so if you think of lowering total cost of ownership, so how do I lower my cost when I'm managing websites? So we've got tools within the platform that allow you to say things like, can you take this landing page and can you replicate it and you can make some changes? So that's one example of being able to speed up key tasks. From a development perspective, we've also got tooling there that'll enable people to create a lot of code in a really considered way and then have that deployed within the platform to work natively. So these are all focused on reducing the effort while still having a really high output. And then to be more contextual, this focus on how do I get more ROI out of my platform? And so when you think about behavior, when you think about personalization, like how do I make sure that these experiences are as good as can be? And so that's where we're able to leverage AI to be, whether it's data review, data aggregation, to be able to make those experiences faster so that you can drive better outcomes for the end users of website as well. So I said, fortunately, we're able to adopt AI into our platform really quickly because of the architectural decisions. Sorry, I just had my son. So fortunately, we've made great decisions around the architecture in order to mean we can be leveraging AI very quickly. I think even if you look at, yes, we've been offering search for a really long time, and to be able to have AI search part of the platform and really improve upon the user experience. These are examples of each part of the user journey getting improved and augmented by AI to drive more benefit.
Do you see cases where a company generally doesn't need a CMS? We talked a bit about, of course, one-man shops, probably not. But are there other cases where, you're thinking, is it worth it?
No, I've not seen any circumstances where people, as I said, to your point, if I'm a really small organization, as I said, I might be able to, and I've got some really good technical skill set, maybe I can build something myself. But no, in all circumstances, I think technology decisions have a really major implication on how far you can take things, how much you can extend things. So I'd say that the need for technology is still there. I think, like what I described, so you need to make sure that the technology you've got will leverage AI, will allow you to get speed up, and have data that can flow through it really quickly and easily. I also make that the case that with a developer, you can build whatever you want. Yeah, so there's no, and they can use AI and they can go faster. So you might not need a CMS in that circumstance, but it goes back to that. Who's maintaining that? Who's making sure that it's secure? How are you handling front end performance? If you do have, even if you are a small organization with a lot of traffic, these are all things that you need to consider. And so I said, maybe there might be the right size platform or the right feature set that a lot of people will need. Um, but also, I'm seeing that need grow. And, it's one of the reasons why we talk about a digital experience platform versus a CMS, because a CMS just on its own, provides great structure for content and great ability to evolve what you're doing. But if I think of, data is central to any digital experience to be able to have behavioral and analytics incorporated there and sharing that information out to other systems that exist within my ecosystem. For me, it just means that the technology has a bigger role. And I think people, I can't think of any time they don't need it.
No, I agree. We had some consideration, like say that you were a small shop and you basically had an e-commerce shop, right, where you didn't have a lot of content as such. Would it be worth it? But I totally agree with you, because then unless you can live with that dependency that it's only Jonathan over there that can fix the stuff and you can't do anything yourself, which a lot of small organizational companies have been struggling with, I'm sure. So I agree with you that, and it's not a big deal if you're doing a small thing to at least have some kind of CMS features in it. So I agree. Cool.
Yeah, that's right. And look, your point around the shop, like what is your core business? What do what do you need? And you just have the right technology that will support it. But it's whether it's that or something bigger, then that just becomes a decision that you need to make.
Yes. Cool. That was all I had of questions. I mean, I could pop up some more, but I think this was great. Thank you so much.
Well, as long as you're happy, Roland,
Yes.
I'm happy too. I think you're doing a great job. And they're great questions about the industry and where things are going. And I think, yes, we need to definitely leverage technology and that's both AI and having existing older technology evolve is critical to that. So my advice to everyone, if you don't have technology now that has a really strong roadmap, not just AI focused, but really strong feature set, like I think that's something for people to look out for in their current providers, as well as modern stacks. So having great technology partners that sit with the technology is really, really important as well. Like I know for us, we've got some great partners around our architecture, and that has enabled us to keep evolving what we're doing with great product and engineering approach, but leveraging the best technologies out there. So I think a lot of people need to look at is their current technology going to keep evolving as well.
But yeah, and we always encourage our clients to at least one time a couple of years you need to do an inventory check, right? What do you actually have out there? Is it worth it? Is it still worth paying for, or do we need to, like you would do with any other financial, basically?
Yeah, no, I like that. I think just because something was solving my problem in the past doesn't mean it's guaranteed to solve it again in the future. So I think always just evaluating and knowing what's possible in tech is really important.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Roland.
Okay.
Take care.